on the north side last week. We have a couple coming up October 28th and then November 4th at Pingtown Park and then at the REI up close north of Clybourne. The purpose of tonight's session, if you hopefully gathered from going around to the different stations, is not for us to tell you what we think and hear your responses. It's just to ask your opinion and your thoughts on ways that we can enhance the rivers, the riverfronts, and sort of the place that the rivers hold in the minds and hearts of Chicagoans. Tonight, just because of where we are, sort of focusing on the Calumet River system. Certainly, if you have thoughts on the Chicago or the Des Plaines rivers, because we have 3 rivers here in the city, we would love to hear those too. So I'm just going to give you a quick just background on what we're doing, what our timeline is, what we're hoping to produce. And then if you want to stick around and talk to me, you're more than welcome to. But also say that Nelson, who's standing here in the middle, Nelson Chung is from the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development, knows a lot about the river system. And Byron was kicking around before in the back from the Park District. And so when I'm done with the presentation, they'll hang out over here too. And if you have specific questions, we can certainly chat. But I would encourage everyone to go back and talk to my colleagues at these different stations, fill out the survey. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. And if you are open to it and amenable and would like to do sort of a video testimonial or share your thoughts, we have some students and staff here from Free Spirit Media who are obviously recording this, and we'd love to talk to you afterwards. So again, Josh, Metropolitan Planning Council, we're a nonprofit, non-government organization, 81 years old now. We work on urban and regional development issues throughout northeastern Illinois and into Indiana. And approximately Thanksgiving last year, the mayor's office of the city of Chicago, as well as the Chicago Community Trust, Arsenal Middle, and the Joyce Foundation contacted us and asked if we would lead a process, not so much to develop a vision for the future of the Chicago, Calumet, and Plains Rivers, but actually to go out and collect ideas and unify. There are a lot of good ideas out there about the future of the rivers, and what we need to go out is go and hear them, gather them together, and then actually tie that vision of ideas, images, aspirations to an actual set of recommendations, not only for the city of Chicago, but for the Cook County Forest Preserves, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and actually Sue Ellen and Anya are here tonight helping out, the Water Reclamation District, the Coast Guard, the Corps of Engineers. Lots of entities who have a much bigger geography than the city of Chicago. Provide them with recommendations on how to actually make that vision happen. And those recommendations might be for actual infrastructure projects, new recreational space, programming, signage, all sorts of stuff. We're eager and hear it all. Water quality issues, so on and so forth. So, point this back. So, I don't know what a lot of folks think about when they think about our rivers, but for a lot of folks, this kind of development, this is on the north side of the city of Chicago, this is in Park Park, new rowing facility. For a lot of folks, this is sort of surprising, right? We did a public survey. Some of the results are on the back side of that easel right there, the front side, depending on what side you're standing on. And there's a lot of ideas that the rivers still today are just sort of dirty and forgotten and left behind. And in some places, I think that's probably still true. And in a lot of places, we actually are starting to see some investment, more people using the rivers for recreation. Folks like the Park District making improvements like this one, seeing some amazing architecture and more access. But what we're seeing is that in specific places, pockets, and not throughout the entire system, certainly not along all 3 rivers. Lake Michigan shoreline of Chicago, it's good to remember, is 26 miles long. We have more than 150 miles of riverfront in the city of Chicago. So there's a lot of land, there's a lot of opportunity there. And the rivers, unlike the lakefront, go through neighborhoods and past people's backyards and past people's businesses, sort of in the middle of the city, the heart of the city, whereas the lake is very clearly the edge and the end of the city. And so we think we have the opportunity to bring amenities into the community in a way that helps everyone out. And this is an example of the kind of investment that has already happened and is possible going forward. The rivers are still very much a working river system. This is downtown. This is the Ozinga facility right in Chinatown. And certainly there's a fair amount of industrial activity down here on the Calumet River, but also on the Chicago. Right? The Des Plaines is largely forest preserve land, and there's no industrial activity there. But they are working rivers. We do have goods, rock material, aggregate, sand coming up on barges. If you've been out on the rivers paddling, you might hear from the County Paddling Group. Obviously, you see the barges out there bringing goods in, taking goods out. We are still a connection point between the Mississippi River system and the Great Lakes system. And it is certainly our belief that there will continue to be an industrial presence on the Calumet and the Chicago rivers, and that's a good thing. These guys produce jobs. These are literally the materials that we build building foundations with, sidewalks, streets, what have you. We would not be able to be constantly building and fixing our region were not for the materials that come in these parts. If you've been downtown to the Riverwalk, this is sort of like the pinnacle to this point of riverfront development. This I would actually say is not a particularly good shot of the wine bar down there. There's usually hundreds of people around drinking a glass of wine after work, and I think shows an eagerness of folks to get down to the riverfront. I would point out, this opened this year. I think 10 years ago, probably the rivers had a different sort of perception or idea in people's minds. 10 years ago, this would have been 4 feet above the river. There would have been a railing. You wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near the water. You could, I wouldn't recommend this, you could sit there with a glass of water and dip your feet in the river if you wanted to. I'm not sure you do, but you could. And the idea that we're bringing the river into development is present here, more so probably than a lot of other places. This level of investment is pretty expensive. We took out a big federal loan to do this. Probably isn't sustainable or replicable through the entirety of the river system, but that kind of energy, creating destinations, places where people want to not only go, but then do something at the rivers, is, I think, attainable in more places than just downtown. When we talk about the rivers in Great River, Chicago, a lot of the words that we use are things like unify. We have lots of stretches of water in Chicago. Ignoring the lake for a second, there's lots of other water just in the city and in the immediate suburbs on the displays the Calumet and the Chicago and all their different pieces. And we've never really had a city policy or a set of city documents that convey aspirations for all of these things together. We have a document that covers maybe a portion of the Chicago River or a portion of the Calumet or something like that, but not really anything that unifies it all together and lets the entire city and the entire region know the direction that we're moving with the river system. Okay? One of the big challenges, and certainly folks down here are very aware, is just sort of a lack of public access to the rivers for whatever, whether it's bird watching, whether it's reading a book by the water, whether it's putting a boat in the water. Very consistent levels of public access. And this is something having to do with the amount of industrial land in a lot of these areas. When you look at a map of Chicago, particularly a zoning map, you see that on the Chicago and the Calumet rivers, most of the waterfront is zoned for some sort of industrial use. It's likely to be that way for the foreseeable future. And so when we hear from this mayor or the previous mayor or all the way back to Jane Byrne, probably before, about making the riverfronts the next great waterfront, which is in a way ironic since they were the original waterfront for the city. The city's there because of the rivers. But when we talk about making the next great waterfront, we have to do something within that industrial space to allow for some public access while also still continuing the industrial use. The land is all industrial. We have to find a way to marry these two things. I would say that some of the Park District improvements down here, places like Big Marsh and Hegwish, some of these ideas are an attempt to do that, to marry recreational and industrial uses in the same geography. But you see different parts of the river system, very different levels of public access. We did a public survey. Some of the results, again, are there on the board. And we asked folks what they thought of the river sections today. And did anyone here take the online survey? Just curious. A couple folks. Hey, thanks very much. Good for you. And glad that other folks are here that didn't take it. So you had the option of answering the same set of questions about the six different areas: the Des Plaines, the Calumet, South Branch, the middle of downtown, the North Branch, and the North Shore Channel. And if you can see here, some of the words that get used a lot. The words "dirty" show up a lot, but so does the word "potential." So I think already in people's minds about the present day condition of the rivers are that we still have some residual issues with water quality and things like that. But there's obviously a lot of potential, or else we wouldn't have so many people out there using it. We wouldn't have people sipping wine down the river in the middle of downtown Chicago if people didn't see the promise. We then asked folks to describe the rivers as they would want them to be in the future. And what's interesting is that the same 5 terms were the top 5 terms for all 6 areas of the river, regardless of where people are from. Which tells me that at least the folks answering the survey and folks answering the survey came from 93% of the city's zip codes, most of our inner ring suburbs, and most of the Great Lakes states. So we had a pretty broad audience take this thing. Pretty much everybody said, we want the rivers and the riverfronts to be clean, easy to get to, active, with exercise options and parks. What's interesting there is parks are clearly a land use and take up space. The rest of them, clean, easy to get to, things like that, are an experience that can describe industrial property, residential property, restaurants, parks, whatever. Right? And if you've been to some of our industrial properties along the waterfront, some of our residential properties, you will see that they are clean. Many of them are not easy to get to, right? So there's some obvious room to grow there. So, why a vision and why now? Folks came to us because there are more folks using the river. There is increased amount of park space being proposed. There are folks that want continuous trail. There are a lot of ideas out there. There's pressure on some of those industrial users from residential developers or other kinds of development to change the nature of uses along the riverfront. More folks want to get on the water in boats. They want to be safe when they're on the water in boats. They want to not get sick from the water when they're out on the water in boats, right? There's continued flooding problems. People want more habitat for wildlife. There's all sorts of aspirations and all sorts of good ideas. And hopefully tonight you're going to tell us even more good ideas. So there's no shortage of vision out there for the rivers. What we don't have is a unified vision that the city and other government partners can use to go forward. And that's our charge, collecting these ideas and developing something that everyone can use together. The goal here, is to inspire Chicagoans, businesses, government leaders to think that the future of the river system can be radically different from the past, right? We're having a hard time, I think, getting over the idea that our rivers are filthy and dirty, and they were, right? In the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, they were absolutely disgusting. And now, they're a lot better. They're pretty good. They could be better. Stormwater management is still a huge challenge for us. We have overflows and that kind of thing. But we have made a lot of progress, and that's not something that we own up to very well. So we want to inspire folks to believe that the future can be different and to help us shape that. To then guide investments, guide programming, guide the allocation of money and financial resources, and to make some priorities for the future. That's what we've been asked to do. Our process, in addition to us and our staff at the Metropolitan Planning Council, we have a leadership commission, which is sort of a blue ribbon panel of government leaders from the Water Reclamation District, the City of Chicago, the Park District. We have civic leaders, the head of the YWCA, the head of Chicago Wilderness. We have industrial folks from Zynga or the Illinois River Carriers, different barges. We've got architects, we've got restaurateurs. We have a whole really broad array of folks who have different interests in the system. And they're sort of our sounding board and telling us whether or not we're totally crazy or we have good ideas. We've got a technical resource group, which is a lot of government staff, folks who are actively working on the rivers. Nelson is on that group. Thank you for coming tonight. Friends of the Chicago River, some of you are probably members, particularly if you're paddlers or kayakers or something like that. They're helping us with more outreach. They've done several paddling trips that folks have gone on and then provided some feedback on the river system. We ourselves are doing a lot of data crunching and mapping. You can see some of the maps around the room tonight. And right now, we're definitely in the information collection phase. That's why we're not tonight proposing any ideas to you. If you were to say, what are you going to build or what are you going to do? I'd say, I don't know yet, right? We're here to hear from you. So we are not pitching you ideas tonight. We're just here to listen. Our timeline, this isn't quite even because March to December is a fairly long period of time. So we're kind of right here in October. Definitely still collecting input. And then we'll start to process that. Develop recommendations, develop images of what the riverfront could look like, and then we'll come back and talk to folks in the spring and say, hey, do we hear you? Right? Is this what you wanted? Does this look like the future of the rivers that you thought you were telling us about? Is this something that you can buy into and be a part of? We'll release that in the spring, and then hopefully move forward with implementation pretty much right away. And hopefully we've got the people involved in the project, whether it's the Park District or the city or MWRD, who need to be part of implementing it. So by bringing them along the process, we'll be ready to go when we're done. One of the things, the map's kind of tough to read. One of the issues that we have, I'm actually just going to skip that. That's super hard to read. We have lots of plans and lots of ideas for connecting sections of the city through Riverfront Trail. In certain parts of the city, there's a lot more Riverfront Trail. In no parts of the city is it absolutely connected. You can't really take a 5-mile bike ride along the riverfront really anywhere in the city. We're getting close in certain places. The Calside Trail, once complete down here, will allow pretty continuous travel along portions of the river in the suburbs. Up further north, we've got lots of pieces on the Chicago River. If you've been up to the north side recently, you can go for a little bit, and then you sort of dead end, and you have to go onto the street, and you can find another piece, and you sort of dead end, and you have to go onto the street. And this is one of the aspirations that people definitely have. We'd love to hear some more about that. Tonight, that's been a city goal since 1999, is to create continuous riverfront trail throughout the city. It's one of the things that people keep bringing up, and several of the maps here ask about that tonight. So that brings us to tonight. What we really want to hear from you, talk to our staff, leave us thoughts, do a video testimonial. We've got tech surveys. We've got no shortage of ways for you to provide input and ideas to us. And that is what I'm hoping we can accomplish tonight. So I'm happy to take just a couple of questions about the process, but then I really want to encourage folks to spread out, give us your ideas, tell us what you think. If you have specific questions about specific issues, I'm happy to answer them. Nelson and Byron. Yes, sir.
How do we ensure that this project isn't just another one of the Chicago gentrification projects that is designed to displace residents as opposed to providing opportunities for working class people in the city of Chicago?
Sure. It is no one's intention at all that this is going to lead to displacement at all. What we're trying to do is bring equity of access to open space, trails, and jobs to everywhere along the river environment throughout the city. I mean, we have that leadership commission, we have the resource group, and we have our staff.
But we're investing resources in things that are not providing actual opportunities for people that live within the city of Chicago. We're investing resources in things like you mentioned, Big Marsh, Lakeside Development, and all these other projects that are not doing anything for the people that live within the communities in these areas around these lakefront properties, or around these riverfront properties as well. So how do we, as a community, ensure that we're not just going to get another city plan like Big Marsh and like these other plans that are just basically telling us what you're going to do, as opposed to working with us to ensure that working class residents that live, especially within the southeast side of Chicago, are protected?
Sure. Well, I would say that's exactly why we're here tonight and not trying to sell you on anything. We're not here telling you something that we want to do. We're not presenting renderings or anything to you. We're asking what you want and what it'll take to get there.
So you're saying that we could have a process where we could say, you give us our plan, you give us your plan, and we say, no, we do not want that plan. And then you guys will go ahead and say, oh, okay, we're going to terminate it.
We're gonna listen and hear what folks think. And
okay, so no
decisions based on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
from the city.
Yep.
And we don't plan here tonight too. So I didn't want, just kind of what Josh said is that I think from our standpoint here, this is kind of a good time for the city to kind of reflect on what we've done the past decade or so to waterway development across the entire city. So I'm kind of just here just to listen. I don't have any concrete or even vague plans before. I'm just here to kind of say, well, we've done a bunch of stuff over the past couple of years here, the past decade. Now is a really good time for us to kind of sit back, reflect, see how effective the plan was, and then from there, I think the point of what Josh is trying to get to is that at the end of this process is that there's going to be a kind of an assessment of, well, what have we done so far, and then make recommendations of, well, what do we do next steps?
We have had similar meetings to this before. I mean, 20 years ago, we had all these meetings about the USX Works development. We had them with the city, and the city told us, oh, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to listen to what you guys have to say. We're going to listen to your agreements, and we're going to work out a plan. And then what happens 20 years later, you guys come out and you throw your plan, and you say, oh, this is what you guys wanted. How do we make sure that that's not going to happen again? How do we make sure that what we say is what's actually going to happen, that what's actually going to be developed, as opposed to you guys just coming and saying, oh, we had the community present and the community agreed to whatever garbage that we decided to throw down their necks?
I can't promise what will happen. All I'm going to say now is that this is the first step. And I think we're here today. We're here to listen. And that's kind of all I can really
Well, can you include our discontent with the way that the plans have typically gone
Well, I think,
in the
I
city
think,
with?
now is your opportunity for you to, there's plenty of opportunity for you to take notes, do video testimony. This is your chance to say really whatever you want.
And we'll be back in the spring and tell us whether we got it right or if we got it wrong. If we got it wrong, we'll work on it. The goal of the project is to ensure equitable access to the rivers, the environment, and activities for everyone. So you have to hold us to that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Sure.
Similar, more of a spin-off of this question.
Yep.
Will there be any community members that live along the river areas and the neighborhoods that will be a part of the planning process and also possibly part of the data analysis piece where they, there's community members that can actually see firsthand the results of the data collection process and maybe possibly be part of that
So I would say this
leadership structure.
This
planning?
meeting, we actually do have some community organizations that are part of that leadership commission. The Little Village Environmental Justice Organization is an example on sanitary chicken now and on that resource group. We certainly welcome more. This tonight is part of that process. We're also doing, we have resource constraints, right? So we're doing a deeper sort of design shred for 5 to 6 specific locations along the river system. So we're talking to the Chicago Housing Authority about doing some work to explore the feasibility of an actual usable riverfront next to Alco Gardens there on the curve in the river, and a handful of other locations throughout the 3 rivers.
So for community residents being part of the planning process, a part of the data analysis process, they need to belong to a community organization. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That would be
It's
the
not just
easiest
individuals
way,
to go
but
and
no,
apply.
we would certainly be happy to talk to colleague Carrison over there by the table. She's probably the best person to talk about getting involved and sharing your thoughts there, even bigger way.
Great, thank you.
Mike, there was a question over here before, Mike. Somebody. Yes, and I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to go around and share ideas. So,
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Spinning off what she said,
Yep.
are there any paid internships for community youth or any jobs or data collection analysis for anyone in this area?
so no, we don't have. All of our interns are volunteers too. That's the way it is. We don't have that kind of funding. If there are folks that are interested in being part of it, we're happy to talk to them. We don't have the resources to pay people right now.
Okay, and then also, how are you going to have conversations about the current pollution along the Calumet River, particularly with the pet coal, which is a huge
Yep.
issue that we're having right
Sure.
now with the future of us?
So some of the larger advocacy groups like NRDC and the Sierra Club who have been very involved in trying to get rid of the PECO are members of that resource group. We also have the Department of Natural Resources, EPA, NWRD,
You have
City of
4
Chicago.
people in this room that have been way more involved than NRDC.
Okay.
Right,
Great,
like-
great. So this is why we're glad that
Okay,
you're
we
here.
have a community group. It's a
Okay.
coalition called the Southeast Side Coalition to Ban Pet Coal. We also have an Environmental Justice Alliance
Okay.
over here. So we need to get in touch with them.
Absolutely,
We have a
absolutely.
spot at the table.
That's why we're here. So yeah, you can talk to me afterwards or talk to Garrett, Mike, and then the red hat, and then this lady, and then I want folks to go and talk to them. So
I just want to share with everyone, I guess, a positive experience that I've had. I've been advocating for additional access of Little Calumet River in the South Suburban area for years. I've worked with an organization called the Illinois Paddling Council, and we started an organization on Blue Island called the Calumet Waterway Stewards. I'm an avid kayaker and paddler, and my goal is to enhance and raise awareness to the Little Calumet River and its resource in the community, and try to get more, particularly minorities in Riverdale and Harvey, to use that river. It is an excellent river. You don't have to go up to Michigan, Wisconsin to canoe and kayak. It's right there. It's a diamond in the rough, but people treat it as if it's a ditch, a drainage ditch, and not an actual river. And so, working with the Forest Reserve District, finally, just 2 weeks ago, they opened up. We had a grand opening for a new boat ramp off of 144th at Kickapoo Woods in Halsted for paddlers, for canoers and kayakers. And it took years to get there, but it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. So now we have a place where I'm trying to do my best to reach out to more people to educate and raise awareness that this exists and is there. And I understand your point, great question about gentrifying, but I really don't think they're going to be trying to gentrify Riverdale anytime soon. But it is a great.
That's what they said about Pilsen, and that's what they say about South Chicago. So
I welcome
we
them to
can
gentrify
totally.
Riverdale. It needs to be.
Wow.
But
I don't think the
It's
people
just
in
a
the
great
Alcal
place
Gardens would appreciate
to
being
take
displaced.
advantage. Let's take a look at the resources that we have in our own neighborhood. We don't even have to go up on the north side, you guys. Lake Calumet is beautiful. We get to use it and exploit it for recreation opportunities and keep the money that we go spend elsewhere. We can keep it right next to it.
Couple more questions.
Okay, my question is, like you said, about the things they're doing over there in Big Marsh. Okay, my problem with Big Marsh is Big Marsh sits actually in the Lake Calumet industrial TIF. There's a TIF actually there, $15 million. But yet, from my understanding, none of that TIF is actually used in spending for improvements in Big Marsh. We had $8 million that was given to Pullman for the Walmart development over there. We had another $2.3 million that was given to that actually to repay 126th and Avenue to 130th and Avenue for business development. That was the Ford Supplier Park for truck traffic. So my thing is we have TIFs that would have succeeded in providing something great at Big Marsh. But when I have talked to people that actually went to the grand opening of Big Marsh, people have referred to the landscape as looking as you're standing on the moon, with piles that, as far as we've been told, is farther than 4 feet deep, a slag. How do we expect to have something, a greenscape that exists on something that doesn't allow anything to grow, as slag does?
So I would say my understanding of several of the parks down here, like Big Marsh, are that they've actually received a lot of federal grants for cleanup and some of the investment, which is probably why TIF money is part of the reason TIF money has gone to things to encourage economic development, because there are these grants from the federal government to support park expansion and things like that. You're absolutely right about the compacted soils and the environmental degradation that's here in some of these areas. And I would say it's to the credit of the park district that they're trying to do something with it. The cost of digging up 4 feet of compacted soil is huge, and you have to do something with it. So I think the aspiration, at least at Big Marsh, with this mountain bike park facility, was to build something on top of it to avoid having to pay that cost of excavating that out. As far as the plantings, generally the policy of the park district now is to use native plants, and they can take 2 years for their roots to really take hold in the flower. So it may be one of those things that actually give time. If you go to north of the island, right downtown right now, I live right next to it, it's pretty ugly. But in 2 years, once the roots take hold, it should look a lot better. So one issue may just be taking time. But I would say the park district is very good at securing federal grants, so that we don't have to reallocate local resources. Byron's right here for the park district.
Just chime in a small bit about the Big Marsh. We do have over $1 million of federal and state funding going to the ecological restoration of the whole site. We finished our ecological restoration management plan, which does in fact take into account all of those environmental conditions. We know about the slag. It actually gets as deep as 20 feet in some places. There's on the northwest side, there's a whole area that used to be a car impound lot. There's a lot of debris there, tires, vehicles, so we're going to have to deal with that. A lot of the restoration is going to involve capping to make the surface safe for people to enjoy as a park, and a lot of it is going to involve a lot of ecological restoration management. As was mentioned, it is going to take 2 to 3 years to actually establish native cover. The biggest thing, the one that we're doing right now, is actually getting rid of a lot of invasive species that have kind of choked out the native marsh and kind of prevented the natural ecological processes from happening. So please do come back. In the next couple of years, we will be improving that site substantially.
You said 100 million?
Over 1 million.
Over 1 million.
I wish. If you've got the other 99, by all means, give it to us.
No, if I got the other 99, I'll put it in Cal Park, not in no big old wasteland for bikers.
Let's call a timeout and go. Oh, you had questions. Okay, go ahead.
I think the concern here is, I think his concern is this. The Northern Lake Island costs millions of dollars to get to the look that it has. Big Marsh should require the same. Why are we being cheated when there's TIF money to do that? I mean, it's going to take years. If you get $1 million here and $1 million there, 25 years from now, maybe Big Marsh will be what it's supposed to be. We're saying if the money's there, we should use it for what it was meant to be used for. And we don't see that happening. So I think we're on your side, but understand that we feel the city needs to step up and do something about that issue. The other issue is we've had meetings with community members exactly about the mean, you can have your meetings here, but believe me, we already have some ideas and plans, and we're just hoping.
So that's what we wanted to do is say, come in here.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you, we'll come back.
Because, you know,
Make a
every
call.
part of the
We'll talk.
river is different. What
Yep.
works for that area may not apply to our area. We know what applies to our area.
Sure, but we couldn't agree more. So we're here as sort of an introduction to the process. I'll give you my card, call me, send an email, we'll come back to whatever meeting you want. Okay, in the hat, sorry, Evelyn, sorry, that's my daughter's name, so you get to go first.
I noticed from your chart that mostly private land, and maybe that's why there's very little tax.
Yep. Yeah. So the questions about private land. Since the late '90s, there's been a policy in place in the city that if there's new real estate development on private land, it actually has to provide a 30-foot setback and public access along the riverfront. So where you're seeing private real estate development happen, you're getting public access even on private land. Where you're not seeing public real estate development happen, you're not getting that public access on private land. So that seems to work in areas where there is new real estate development. It seems that doesn't work in areas where there isn't. And so we have to figure out a way to provide access there through some sort of strategies, maybe using dead-end streets that dead end at the river to create pocket parks, maybe doing some strategic land acquisition, maybe building a river walk that floats in the river instead of being on land. So yeah, figuring out a way to get public access in an environment that is largely private land is one of our major challenges. That's what we have to do because large areas of the riverfront are private land.
I have one question to that.
Sir, you're very
where
patient, sir.
Where there is already public access,
Yep.
there should be public access.
Yep.
On Hegwish Marsh,
Yep.
the Park District has that.
Yep.
It is closed off most of the time.
Mhm.
So, I mean, can you help us with that? I mean,
Yeah.
this place is closed off. There's no parking lot.
Yep.
Hegwish Marsh is actually open and does have a parking lot right now. It's off Forest Avenue, just south of 130. You're welcome to visit anytime. The park is open.
Okay, when you had a program on that property a couple of weeks ago, they had to unlock the gate, the chain, to let them in the parking lot that was used for the builders when they were doing some building construction. It's not a normal parking lot, and they took away the facility that was supposed to be built
Yep.
on that land, which would have been banned. That's why it's closed off.
The
And
Ford Environmental Center, right?
This,
Can we get that on
this is,
Hegwish Marsh?
Actually, if you want to talk about the Ford Environmental Center, you talk to Sue Ellen back there in the polka dot.
Sue Ellen, can we get it on Hegwish Marsh?
can
Like
you help
we originally
us
were
get
told.
access to the river on that land? It's already there.
Yeah.
It's already public.
Yes, I would say grab Elizabeth back here with the notepad and the blue shirt. Elizabeth, yeah, come on up and talk to this lady and get the specific story about what's going on with that. All right, sir, in the hat. Last one, and then we got to break up and go to the stations and share your ideas with us. Yes, sir.
Is there any plan at all for that portion of the Grand Calumet River that goes in past Torrance Avenue into the Grand Calumet, Calumet River, going back to the state line? That's the part of the river that was excluded from the IJC project, the $1 billion project, where they cleaned it up in Indiana. But that one piece, is anybody talking about doing something with that one?
I don't know of anyone who's talking about specific ideas to do with that. If you have them, we would love to hear them. There are maps here in the back that include that portion of the river system. If you have ideas about access, regardless of what city or village that's in, we would love to hear. But I don't know of anybody that's doing anything specific on it right now.
Just briefly, the National Bureau of Statistical Standards used to scoop the poop from the Grand Calumet River and dry it and sell it for $100 an ounce because they said it was the most contaminated, most evenly distributed sediment in the entire nation, so that you could use it to spec out your spectrometer. They're leaving 3 miles of that stuff right there in the state line.
So that's something we should probably do something. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming. And if you have want us to come back and talk to other groups, just come and grab us. I can answer questions. Byron obviously can ask you questions about the park.
You're back.
It sounds like that's what-